who sewed his own clothes out of towels, his shirts, his pants, even full suits. Well, today I want to tell you about an Australian composer by the name of Percy Grainger. Percy was born in Melbourne in 1882, and his family life was quite a bit conflicted growing up. His father was an architect, but he was a bit distant and eventually completely estranged. His mother, she was very domineering and very controlling of his life. She decided to homeschool him his entire life. She was intensely ambitious and also convinced of Percy's genius, and so she went with that. Percy was her only child, and so she focused all of her energy on this boy. She isolated him from his peers and turned him into a prodigy that she saw and she wanted. By the time he was 10, he was out performing piano concerts. She did not just encourage music, she obsessively curated this life for him. His mother monitored his diet, his habits, his friendships, and eventually even his love life later on. It ended up very tragic, but she was in control fully of every aspect of his life. In 1895, Rose, his mother, took him to Frankfurt to study music there. He studied piano and composition. Now, while he's there, he's surrounded by the musical elite, but he feels completely out of place. Of course, he has no way of understanding how to interact with the world because he's never had to. He is socially awkward. Emotionally, he feels very intensely, but also he is completely disinterested in following the musical rules. By his late teens, early 20s, he is celebrated as a renowned concert pianist. He is known for his energy, the almost athleticism that he puts into it. His career as a performer is definitely phenomenal, a bit awkward at times. He will come in jogging, like running through the audience and jump on stage and start his concert. He toured extensively all across Europe and then later also across the United States. He developed a reputation as this brilliant but very unconventional artist. He dressed very oddly, he spoke very bluntly, and he had absolutely no patience or little patience for the regular musical traditions. Poor Percy, his romantic life was difficult because of his mother. He did have very intense emotional attachments to people, but he completely avoided marriage. His mother, Rose, disappointed of every single relationship he had, and she worked very hard to keep him emotionally completely dependent on her. Sadly, in 1922, his mother decided to unalive herself, and this was absolutely devastating to Percy because that was his whole life, but also it set him free. Now, years later after this happened, he did end up marrying, and he married Ella Strom. She was an artist and a poet, but also someone who completely accepted him with all his quirks and eccentricities. There was no judgment, and for all we know, they had a good, supportive relationship. When composing, he rejected the well-known and well-established Italian terms like crescendo, diminuendo, any of these terms, and he would make them write them down in English, which is fine. So instead of crescendo, it would say loud, and instead of diminuendo, he would put soften and other terms as well. He also meticulously archived everything he had, all his letters, his coins, his scores, even his furniture, everything. His rejection of convention was even found in his clothes. He believed that towels, yes, the towels that we used to dry off with, were hygienic and practical and honest. And so he would take these towels and sew them into clothes. It's not like that's all he ever wore, but he wore it frequently. He made suits out of towels, shirts out of towels, just pants out of towels, anything you would wear, coats, he would make them out of towels. And he liked it. It was convenient. It felt good. It was comfortable. He was really into fitness and health. I don't know if this is like a byproduct of stuff he grew up with his mom, but he loved running and jogging. He would sometimes run several miles a day. And as I said before, sometimes he would run in between concerts and run up to the stage. He wasn't just interested in physical fitness. He was actually really obsessed about this, including his diet. He lifted weights. He liked to swim in freezing waters at times. He hiked long, long distances. He really believed that a healthy body would allow him to be more creative. He ate very healthy, often vegetarian. He despised alcohol and tobacco and would put down people that imbibed on these things. Definitely very different than many of the composers we have seen so far. But not different from other composers. He had this fascination with folk music, and we've seen this before. And like other composers before him, he also believed that this was the purest expression, the purest form, because folk music isn't learned. Folk music is not like you go to conservatory and get an education. Folk music is truly the expression of the people just living everyday life. So he went around England, and he went around the greater Europe, and eventually he even went around in the United States recording folk music. Again, often I talk about these composers, and many of them just have these strange, interesting lives. But they also, and same for Percy, really influenced music from then on. And he was truly a composer. Now, he did not like the German romanticism that was big at the time and that things were being founded on. He felt that music was ego-driven. It was too obsessed with personal suffering. So think about Brahms, people like that. That was a big no-no for him. He liked the idea of communal music making. He liked things light, but that not necessarily like not difficult, but like that it sounded good. He really liked physical motion in his music. Again, he really liked folk music. To him, folk music was not this thing that you looked at and tried to polish and try to learn from. He thought of folk music as like a living organism that you can learn from. He loved the irregular rhythms of it. He also liked the uneven phrases. He liked the sliding pitches and also the way that at times the music just sounds like speech being delivered. He liked the rough edges at times. He also created elastic scoring. We call it flexible scoring, which is great as a music teacher. So he'll have a piece of music and he doesn't just write it for one way. He would write it for full symphony, for a band, for a string orchestra, for amateurs, or for, so that if you hear a piece that you can find an arrangement, all different types by him. Percy Grainger's most visionary idea as far as music goes is what he called free music. He believed that the music that we were listening to, the music that people were composing, was not free. It wasn't expressive enough. He felt that it was being constrained by bars, by rhythms and all this, and that we should take all that away. He said nature doesn't move in straight lines, so why would music, our expression, move in straight lines? He imagined music that would just flow freely without any beats or distinct notes. It's what we would now call like electronic soundscapes, but we didn't have instruments like that at the time. So actually he went and created new machines that would do this, new instruments. And in this way, he was way ahead of his time creating electronic music before that was a thing. During World War I, he moved to the United States and became an American citizen. He played in the military band. That was all he could do, as he could not serve in combat. Then later on, he created, during his lifetime, the Grainger Museum, not in America, but back in Melbourne. Remember, he was very meticulous about keeping everything, so all his letters, his scores, his personal artifacts, furniture, all that went back to Melbourne, and he created a museum to himself. He really wanted to control his own legacy, and so I guess he did. He lived in White Plains, New York, and he ended up dying from complications of cancer in 1961. He was one of the pioneers in ethnomusicology, definitely a forerunner in electronic and experimental music. There is so much more to say about him that I just can't get into, because then I would be talking for an hour. But I would go look him up. He did himself say he did not want to be remembered as a composer, but as a music maker. So go and listen to something by Percy Grainger.